Mommy, why is the Emperor naked? Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Michael Noland here, and tonight we are going to discuss a living legend. No, not just a living legend, but one of the two of the 20th century's greatest musical composers, Sir James Paul McCartney. Now, as many of you know, I've already kind of given my 2 cents worth as far as what Paul has been charging regarding his current tour. I've already discussed how rafter tickets are priced at about $250, often located slightly behind the stage, and how ever since Paul McCartney embraced this corporate sponsorship type of touring, how tickets have gone right through the roof. Gone are the days where just your average Paul McCartney fan can afford to see him. But that's not the focus of tonight's video. Tonight we're going to take a look at exactly what Paul McCartney is presenting here on his current tour. First of all, the music catalog is top-notch, no doubt. A catalog that includes really 3 different incarnations of his life. That with the Beatles, with Wings, and as a solo artist. And at 80 years old, Paul McCartney has to be the very first rock god to be able to tour at 80 years old and still fill stadium after stadium. My respect for Paul McCartney as a composer, as a musician, and as a vocalist can never be underrated. Now, I've been scouring the internet for snippets of his performance at these concerts. First of all, I just want to say the musicianship is pretty much top-notch. Paul has not lost a step in regard to his amazing musicianship, and of course this band, who has been with him now 20 plus years, are at the top of their game. They do play a little bit fast and loose with some of their interpretations of Paul's songs, and I find that very curious. You see, Paul has always been a stickler for playing his songs pretty much the way you hear them on record. Oh yes, they're at Led Zeppelin volumes, but they sound pretty much like the records. He has explained this because he says there is a certain legacy to those interpretations, and he's always wanted to remain true to that. And yet on this tour, we see little guitar flourishes, little keyboard flourishes that aren't there in the original interpretations. But you know, there's not enough changes with these little flourishes to make these songs, well-known songs, interesting to listen to for the umpteenth time live. In fact, from what I've been able to gather, it makes the band sound less tight, in my opinion. Now, I've discussed in prior videos how I've hated how Paul McCartney has approached some of the Beatle material. For example, always supplying Eleanor Rigby orchestration through keyboards that sound fake. Well, nothing's changed on this tour, and you would think with the prices that people are paying for tickets to watch this guy, we could get a live orchestra. But you know, the musicianship here is top-notch. Paul's never looked better. I love it that he's just let his hair go gray. He's got to be the best looking 80-year-old rocker to ever live. His stage presence is as good as it's ever been, with him matching energies decades old. But you know, there's an elephant in the room, and we're going to address that in tonight's video. The one thing that is on everybody's mind these days is Paul McCartney's singing voice. He hasn't lost his voice totally here, and on some songs it still sounds good, and on songs such as Live and Let Die, any vocal doubts are buried with his fantastic light show. But you can't have extreme light shows and fireworks for every single piece. It's on some of Paul's most beloved pieces that the cracks start to show. Now, I'll give you a perfect example. The song Hey Jude. Now, the reason I love this song so much is that when I first heard it, I thought, my God, here's a song that has a crooner and some of the best screaming vocals that no one had ever heard nor would hear until shortly after the Beatles recorded that song with the great and wonderful Robert Plant of Led Zeppelin. This is the perfect song to show Paul at his very best in both styles of singing, right? Well, evidently not anymore. During the main section of the song, his voice sounds raspy and weak, and those wonderful yelps and screams and screeches that we used to get whenever he would perform this song, at the end, in the refrain, are all but gone. Now, I do want to mention a video by Bruce from the R&B show here. He gives his opinion on what songs that Paul McCartney should still be singing and perhaps what songs he might add to his list. You know, it's been a long time since Paul has added a whole lot of new material to his set list. But you know, I have to agree with Bruce here. There needs to be a change of direction. You know, Paul should be taking a real good look at just what he can reasonably perform these days, and then add stuff that he can sing. Now, where would he get such material? How about his last 4 albums, folks? None of these albums have ever been toured seriously. At the most, we get 1 or 2 songs per album, whatever year that album came out, on the tour that album came out, and unfortunately, never to be heard too much from again. But that's my point here. You see, Paul can no longer become a jukebox hero for all of us just to listen to top quality reinterpretations of Beatles and Wings classics. And here's another thing. What about the time back when the Beatles were still together, and Paul suggested to John that the Beatles appear in smaller venues, just showing up and playing and getting themselves back together? Or what about the Paul McCartney who packed up the kids, the wife, the dog, and cats and went on a university tour? You know, historically, these are considered some of Paul McCartney's most artistic endeavors in his career. I will not pay $250 for a rafter ticket to see him this small and him this big on a giant screen and have to put up with the vocal anomalies that are so present that nobody wants to talk about. Instead, you hear people say things like, well, you know, Paul McCartney's 80, he has earned the right to tour and sing with his voice in disrepair. I disagree. I don't care who you are, how high you have reached. Any rocker owes their audience. You owe them your best at all times. And unfortunately, Paul's vocals are not up to snuff. Not for some of the pieces he's trying to play. And what is this Got Back tour? Didn't we have a Get Back tour? I have an idea, Paul. How about a Give Back tour? A tour where you play smaller venues, theaters, and you keep the ticket prices down intentionally. This would give you the freedom to still sing the songs that you can from your past and open up a ton of material that you could perform from your very latest album. Believe me, Paul, there are those of us who wait year to year for you to release something new. Now, if Paul were to do this, I think he could even make up the cash that he might be losing by playing the larger arenas. And here's what I mean. There are tons of stuff he has never played live. Can you imagine the DVD sales? Perhaps even a live film released in theaters or on Disney Plus. You seem to have an in with Disney, Paul. You know, such a tour would show the world what a few of us already know about Paul McCartney. That he is a true artist in every sense of the word, and that he still has something fresh and vital to offer yet even a new generation of fans. So fireworks be damned, stadiums be damned, and truly get back and give back, Paul.